Hey guys, Meth here. This new series is called Help Me Help You. And the reason for that is because nobody ever bloody well listens when people explain some of the more technical stuff in Battlefield 1, and then they wonder why they're not doing very well tap firing their support weapon. So the focus of today's series is actually going to be support weapons, but in order to explain how support weapons work, it's helpful to understand how the assault weapons work. The assault weapons have slightly more straightforward mechanics, and once you understand that, then you can see what DICE have done to differentiate the support weapons from the assault weapons. So let's get going. Okay, so assuming you're not suppressed, there are 4 things that affect where your bullet goes. Your aim, the gun's vertical recoil, horizontal recoil, and spread. Okay, let's look at each one of those in turn. So number 1, your aim. If you want to improve your aim, I'm afraid the primary route to doing that is practice. Now there are a lot of variables in what we might call good aim. Target acquisition, target tracking, aim for center of mass or the head debate, target prioritization, when to fire, when not to fire, just to name a few. And working on techniques that would improve your aim is a topic for another video. And thinking about what you're doing when you're just running around in hipfire mode, like where are your crosshairs actually pointed and why are you aiming at what you're aiming at whilst you're in the thick of the battle, those are the beginnings of the thought processes that will cultivate improvement. Okay, so on to the second thing that affects your aim, vertical recoil. I think this one's fairly well understood by the community, but there are still quite a lot of new players to Battlefield 1, so I am going to explain the basics of vertical recoil. Each bullet that you fire pulls the barrel of your gun up, and therefore pulls your aim up. The more you fire, the further up your aim goes. Now this is pretty easily compensated for by simply dragging the mouse down as you fire, and thus countering the vertical recoil. I should say that each gun in Battlefield 1 has a different amount of vertical recoil, and I'd suggest that you go to simthic.com to look up the amount of recoil that each gun has. So now I'm going to say something pretty strange. Having discussed aim and vertical recoil, I'm now going to tell you to completely ignore them. Your aim and vertical recoil are eminently controllable. They're controllable by you, almost completely. So with some practice, we can ignore both of their effects on the game, which means we're left with just 2 variables, horizontal recoil and spread. And it's these 2 variables that DICE use to determine the effective engagement ranges of the guns in Battlefield 1. So let's take a look at these last 2 variables, starting with horizontal recoil. Now horizontal recoil seems to be fairly misunderstood by the community. People seem to be split into 2 camps. People who think that they can compensate for a gun's horizontal recoil, and people who know that you can't. So if we take a quick look at the stats from the Lewis gun low weight, you can see that it's got 0.17 pull left, 0.17 pull right, and you might be justified in thinking that that means it's got no horizontal recoil because it's pulling equally in both directions, if only that were true. What's actually happening here is that the game engine is picking a random number between minus 0.17 and plus 0.17 for every single round you fire. So if the probability gods aren't on your side, it might actually choose negative 0.17 4 times in a row. And if it did that, your gun's just going to pull pretty hard to the left. Luckily, this kind of thing is incredibly improbable. When you fire thousands and thousands of shots in simulators with those stats, what you'll see is the following. This is a normal distribution curve. Now I hate maths as much as the next person, but what this shows you is that the probability gods are fair. The cumulative choices made by the random number generator are going to tend towards the middle. So whilst it's constantly picking random numbers between negative 0.17 and positive 0.17, the majority of those choices are going to be centralized. But given it's making those choices on a per bullet basis at the rate of fire of your gun, which for the Lewis low weight is 480 RPM, that means you would have to see, react to, and then compensate for 8 random choices of direction per second. Nope. And then if you double that for something like the Automatico, you can see how it's even more. Nope. So I think we've established that whilst horizontal recoil has a centralized distribution, which is fair on the face of it, unless you're not human, you can't compensate for it because it happens way too quickly. Ah, but vertical recoil happens 8 times per second. How come I can compensate for that then? It's because it's entirely predictable. It only happens in one direction. So you can actually pre-compensate for it. You could start pulling down before you even start firing. We've established that you can't compensate for horizontal recoil, but what does it actually mean for your game? It means that even if you're aiming for your target's chest, some of your bullets are going to go wide, either to the left or to the right, and therefore miss. And because horizontal recoil is actually measured in degrees, as is vertical recoil, The further you are from your target, the more exacerbated this effect becomes. If you're going to use a high horizontal recoil weapon, like an Automatico say, you want to use it in close or close and medium range engagements. If you're going to use a low horizontal recoil weapon, say a Lewis gun, you want to use it in medium and medium long range engagements. But we haven't even gotten around to talking about spread yet, and spread, unfortunately, overlies the effect of horizontal recoil. So let's talk about spread. I actually think spread is more intuitive to understand than horizontal recoil. Aside from sniper rifles, all guns in Battlefield 1 have what's called a base spread. Taking a look at the Lewis gun low weight again, the base spread is 0.21. Now spread is also measured in degrees. This means that your first bullet is not perfectly accurate. It can go anywhere in a cone, which is 0.21 degrees wide starting from the player model. Now let's not worry about cones for a minute. Take a slice through the cone at 90 degrees to the long axis of your gun barrel and it makes a circle. Now I said we'd start with the assault weapons because they model spread more intuitively than the support weapons. So here you can see the Automatico Storm's base spread, which is 0.3 degrees. The first shot fired from that gun can happen anywhere in that green disc. But now let's look what happens when you fire subsequent shots. Let's do a 10 round burst from here. As you would expect, you can see the spread increasing, so the 10th shot can be chosen to be randomly anywhere in that much bigger disc. I'd also like to point out the huge jump in spread between the first shot and the second shot. This is new to Battlefield 1 and it's the first shot spread multiplier. Now if you think back to Battlefield 4, tap firing was the meta. Everybody tap fired or micro bursted everything, and there was no need to do anything else to remain accurate. Because spread increased linearly in Battlefield 4 and also spread decrease was 5 to 7 times faster than in Battlefield 1, tap firing enabled you to engage targets far outside the intended ranges of the guns in Battlefield 4, and at those enhanced ranges still put enough DPS down range to outdamage somebody who returned fire using say a 10 round burst. If you start tap firing an assault weapon in BF1, the combination of the first shot spread multiplier and the much slower spread recovery built into the mechanics is going to mean that you'll probably end up accumulating spread. If you tap fire slow enough such that you don't accumulate spread, then your DPS will suffer instead. By getting rid of the tap fire meta from Battlefield 4, DICE are effectively forcing guns into an effective range. They work well within the range that they're intended to be used, but if you try and use them at ranges further than their intended range, you'll just start missing more than you hit, meaning your DPS on target drops and that you therefore become ineffective. Bottom line here is probably, for an assault weapon, 5 or 6 round bursts with an appropriately timed pause between those bursts to allow your spread to recover fully is probably going to result in a higher DPS than trying to tap fire. So now that we understand what DICE did to the assault weapons in Battlefield 1 to stop you from cheesing them at any range, let's take a look at what they did to the support weapons. So this is the Lewis gun low weight, and first thing to note is its base spread is 0.21 degrees compared to the Automatico's 0.3 degrees. The Lewis gun's one of the more accurate LMGs in the game, and it's designed to be used effectively at medium long range, so a low base spread is expected. Now watch what happens with the 10 round burst. Wow, look at that first shot spread multiplier. 0.21 straight up to 0.72. That's 3.5 times. Now if you compare that to the Automatico's first shot spread multiplier, just slightly under 2 times, so you're really punished on the support weapon's first shot spread multiplier. But that's not the whole story, let's carry on watching. So after that initial spread increase, the spread's starting to come down. By the 7th shot, it's now back to the original base spread of the gun. Shots 8, 9 and 10 are also at base spread, and it'll stay at base spread for as long as you hold down the trigger. So the pattern here that DICE have created for the support weapons is you don't tap fire them because you've got an absolutely colossal first shot spread multiplier, but depending on the support weapon, by the time you've got to the 4th through to the 7th shot, you're back down to base spread and you can do sustained fire and remain very accurate. Now this might be sounding a little bit too good to be true, and to an extent it is. Remember horizontal recoil? We can't discount its effects. So whilst your support gun spread has gone up and then worked its way back down to base spread and you're still firing, horizontal recoil is still moving the barrel of your gun from side to side. And that's going to turn that nice clean spread circle into something more elongated like this. Thank you to Leptis at Synthic for doing all of the maths that shows how a circular spread cloud is affected by the movement of horizontal recoil. The bottom line really is even though your base spread has dropped down to its minimum, the horizontal recoil that your gun is experiencing is going to be a limiting factor to your overall accuracy at range. The take home messages from all of this really are for assault, maybe 5 to 8 round bursts, and time those bursts, you need to have a proper pause between each of the bursts to reset spread. For support, fire and keep firing until your target is dead. If you start tap firing a support gun, your spread's going to go through the roof, it'll never recover, and you'll miss everything hilariously. I realise this has been a pretty intense video, but if you've got any questions or comments, please leave them below and I'll try and do my best to answer. In the meantime, take care, have fun, and I'll see you out there.